Welcome to Mindful Education. My name is Daniel Rekshoff, and I am your MC for this journey. This is a journey of personal and professional development. You're joining a worldwide community of teachers, educators, administrators, people who are committed to bringing mindfulness, social emotional learning, a better way of teaching to students. You are also going to have the opportunity to learn from the top leaders in mindfulness, social emotional learning, neuroscience, in how to integrate this work into your schools. The way that I'm going to go through this training is that I'm going to keep coming back to what I'm calling the 5 literacies of mindful learning. So we're going to be really working through that, and it's what's in my workbook, and we'll be able to really kind of step-by-step move through this. And I'll go through them just kind of briefly right now to explain the curriculum. The curriculum of the 5 literacies are for us, so we'll explore these 5 literacies, and then we're also going to explore these 5 literacies for how we teach to kids K through 12 with special needs, with different populations. So we're really going to explore how to teach all these different types of mindfulness to all different types of people. The first literacy of mindfulness is around physical literacy, right? And this is all in the workbook, which you all will hopefully have to be able to look into. So the first is physical literacy. And physical literacy, we start here because in order to be able to learn, we want to be able to feel regulated and safe in our bodies. So we always want to start in the classroom by checking it out. How are we feeling? If the class is fidgety and there's just kind of pushing in kind of more standardized testing in the way that we often do of like, okay, well, the classroom isn't doing well, let's push them a little bit harder, right? That often just kind of adds more stress to the system, which all the neuroscience is showing the more stressed you are, the less well the brain operates, right? The more relaxed and trusting and present you are, the smarter we are. So that's the kind of foundation. We'll do a lot around the language of our sensations. So we start by figuring out what are our sensations? What do we feel in the body? How can we relax and regulate our body? How can we be more present? How can we actually have fun and appreciate the present moment experience? And so that's the kind of physical literacy. Then we get to the mental literacy, which is more around focusing. We do all of these things that we'll talk about building different types of muscles. First, we do building our attention muscles. So we're actually doing the practice. Basically, what happens when you're trying to develop attention is you're actually just working with distraction. So your mind spaces out, and then you pull the attention back, and you spaces out, and you pull the attention back. It's like you're doing reps, right? Strengthen that attention, focus in. And then also, we're kind of, by doing that, we're also naturally working with our thinking. So you're noticing thought patterns, you're noticing what's going on in the mind, noticing how to be able to bring the attention back, how to focus. We have to do the physical literacy first because it's really important when we're trying to bring the attention in, to bring it to a physical place in the body. We're such a kind of shoulders and neck up culture. We're so in our heads. We're wanting to bring our attention down to a root that we can feel, like down to our feet, down to our butt. Like let's drop it down so we can actually be more grounded, more present. Once we do the physical literacy, the mental literacy, we move into the realm of emotional literacy. And the emotional literacy, what we're doing there is really important. We have to build the physical and the mental first, right? You definitely don't want to go into a classroom and be like, okay, we're going to work on anger now, right? We're going to work on sadness, right? This is something that we'll talk a lot about. right? Or whether we're talking about kind of trauma or just a lot of stress or difficult emotions, our school cultures mostly have tried to relegate emotions to the side, right? Like, let's figure out how you can push all your emotions to the side so we can just learn this, right? So all of a sudden with social emotional learning and mindfulness, when we're saying, no, we want all of you. We want to fully meet you. And emotions aren't bad, right? They're real, they're human. If we're gonna say that and we're gonna bring it in, we need to do it really consciously and carefully, because the system wasn't really created for it, right? So we're gonna do a lot around, okay, let's build up the kind of relaxation practices, the focus practices, so when that emotion does come in, we know what to do with it. We know how to hold it, right? So I'll do this a bunch of times, but one of the ways that I talk about emotional literacy is we start by let's imagine that my hand is my thoughts that are up here. And especially when my thoughts are fluttering around in the wind, like this was a branch with leaves, then it's kind of like we're ruminating, we're thinking, like the mind is in the hamster wheel. So every time that happens, and you need the mental literacy in order to notice that, right? So the mental literacy is, oh, my mind is spinning. Usually what happens is we just get blended into our thoughts, right? I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm whatever, and it's just it's all that, I'm just stuck up here. I can't believe they did that. Next time I'm gonna do blah, blah, blah. And we're caught in it, we believe it, right? I love the bumper sticker that I saw once which said, don't believe everything you think, right? So you kind of get that. Oh, there's this spinning. You catch it, and then what we do is we track it down and we get in, where is that in my body, right? Where is every single time there's a heavy rumination, it's residing somewhere in your body. There's actually a furnace in there that's popping that up. Maybe it's in the heart and it's kind of shaky, maybe the belly's tight, wherever it is, there's an emotion center that's connected to it. And that's where we can actually work. And this is why we need the physical literacy, right? So we have the mental literacy that you catch the thought, and the physical literacy is, oh, what's the sensation? Oh, heat, tightness, right? And then you get into it. Oh, wow, that's intense, right? Let's see if we can orient into it and be present with it, which then we need to bring in the other part of the emotional intelligence, or the emotional literacy, which is about compassion and care. Can I just be really kind and caring to this intense feeling in my body? And that's where the transformation happens, right? And this is the gem, there's lots of gems in mindfulness, but this one may be it, right? If we can orient into this experience, which we're always trying to run away from, and say, wow, this is painful, but I'm going to be present to it. Then instead of kind of running away and thinking our way out of it, we actually orient in and take care of ourselves, and then magically it kind of shifts. It can transform. Maybe the pain doesn't just go away. This is really how, Jon Kabat-Zinn, when he started mindfulness-based stress reduction 30 years ago, or however long it was, they began it by being at the UMass Medical Center, and he said, hey, can you send us a bunch of people? We want to do this 8-week mindfulness course. At the time, it was very kind of fringe, strange, navel-gazing idea where they were just well, how's that going to help anything? And what they did is they ended up sending all of their, what they called treatment-resistant patients, right? So people with different types of pain issues or different types of chronic issues that the doctors were we just don't know what to do with it. So they brought them in, they practiced mindfulness, as we will be doing, breathing, walking, eating some raisins, just orienting towards the present moment. And magically, all of these amazing transformations happened. And the key to them were, if you have chronic pain, and this is I used to have a serious back problem, and the basic piece of it is there's the pain, and then there's the layers of fear and resistance that we lay onto it, right? And so it's I Like a back spasm, if you're afraid that you're going to have a back spasm, that fear actually often creates a back spasm, because fear and spasms are basically the same thing. It's just like a tightening, right? So basically what happens is mindfulness is a opening to what is true in the moment, right? So we're like, sadness. Let's be present and inquire and notice. And so there's an opening and a relaxation, and then the pain is there, but it's not necessarily too much, right? You can actually feel it. You can be present to it. It can soften. It can open, right? It's much more easy to feel. So from there, as we're going to practice the emotional literacy, what we're going to do is we're going to work both with the difficult emotions. And again, I'm really clear not to say negative emotions, right? Because anger, sadness, anxiousness, fear, these all have very appropriate moments for us to listen to, but they can be really difficult and destructive, right, if we boil into them. So what do we do with those difficult emotions? And then also helping to support, to strengthen our happiness, our compassion, our generosity, our ways that when we look at somebody else and they do something great, we can actually feel this kind of joy for somebody else doing something great, right? Which amazingly doesn't have a word in English. It's such an important emotion, that emotion of like seeing somebody else doing something great, and like kind of the word in our culture is like jealous. Like I'm jealous that they're doing that, but it's not exactly jealous. I actually am happy that they're doing that. Even though I don't have it, I'm like, that's great that that person did that. So from there, right, often the mindfulness practices that I've seen often stop there after those first three, right? So we have, we're more present, relaxed in our bodies, we're more focused and less distracted, we feel happier, more regulated and less reactive. And so then what do we do with that, right? Where do we go from there? That's the beginning part, right? That's the kind of training wheels that we've put on. Then we move into social literacy, right? And social literacy, we take this compassion, we take this regulation, we take this attention. There's some great research that's been coming out around how mindfulness supports us to be aware of our assumptions, which create biases, and that people who practice mindfulness create less assumptions and are less biased, which is profound, right? Like, that's a huge aspect for me, and I've been creating a lot of practices that go with that. How can we teach people to look at another human being, to look at a story, and to look at it with really open eyes, without putting things in boxes immediately, which takes the mindfulness practice of not just identifying things immediately, but noticing, those are my thoughts about it. What other thoughts could I have about it? Let's kind of pull back a little bit and look at this from a more open perspective. We'll also talk a lot about mindfulness of kind of social interactions. How can we communicate better? We'll get into some nonviolent communication. How do we listen really mindfully? How do we relate with each other in a really compassionate, empathic way? How do we notice when we have lots of judgment towards somebody, and can we extend our compassion past the judgment and actually have empathy for people? And very often also, like I was saying with the building the attention muscles, we'll figure out how to build the empathy muscles, right? So I often do like practices with kids where we'll talk about, do a practice where we say, just like me, this person wants to be happy. Just like me, this person wants to have friends. And I'll kind of think into it. And often afterwards, kids will say really honestly, as they do, they'll be like, it was really weird. I really don't like that kid, but for some reason I kind of liked them for a moment, and I felt a little weird. I don't know if I liked that, but actually working those muscles, right? Like, let's actually, instead of just telling kids, be nice, or telling kids, pay attention, or telling kids, don't react, right? Like, let's give them those tools. Let's work those muscles. Right? From there, we'll go into a kind of global or ecological literacy. And this one I feel really, in our world right now, this is utterly important. Like, how do we create global citizens? How do we create ambassadors of mindfulness? And a big piece of that is around being mindful of the way something impacts you and the way you are aware of how you impact the world. So I'll do a lot of practices with kids where, just simple ones, where I'll like turn off the lights and like, how did that affect you? Let's walk outside and notice walking there. How does that affect you? Let's really just kind of be aware. Let's walk in and stand in front of a different person. Now stand in front of someone else. Let's actually notice the impact the world has on us, and then also noticing the way that we are impacting the world. I'll do some things around, our footprint, like our ecological footprint. How are we? And some of this gets like a little bit. Mindfulness is a little bit revolutionary if you kind of really follow it, right? Because I'll do something like, I'll take this and I'll say like, okay, this chapstick, like it's easier with a pencil, because if I have a pencil and I say, where did this come from? Let's actually look into this mindfully. So not just mindful of like being in my body and relaxed, but like, let's be aware of our environment. Where are we, right? What's happening around us socially, ecologically? Let's take this pencil. Where did this come from? What is this, right? And that's an easy one. Okay, a wood. Where did the wood come from? Oh yeah, that must have come from a tree, right? Oh, let's look at this chapstick. What is that, right? Oh, that must have come plastic. That must be like ancient, seashells and dinosaurs that were ground up for, millions of years and extracted. And let's actually understand impact, right? What did it take for this to be in my hands? And that can get a little bit like, in the same way that looking at our emotions can be a little difficult. And in the same way that I don't just throw people in the deep end of their emotions, I don't just throw people into, like, it's not good just to be like, you're destroying the world with your chapstick, right? I'm really interested in also what I call like a handprint. There's some great people from Yale who are doing this thing on handprints, which are around understanding what you can do in your life to minimize your footprint, or to do positive things, to plant a tree, or to do, clean up a stream bed, or what are you doing to actually create a more healthy world, right? So I'm really interested, let's get aware of, where are we sitting? What's the land that we're on? What's the material that we're using? What's the impact we're having on this planet? And let's understand how we can do amazing things to bring things into deeper balance, right? Let's understand the judgments we have towards other people. And let's figure out how we can limit those assumptions and be more compassionate, right? So that's the basic arc that we're gonna take. We start with ourselves. We start by exploring our own mindfulness practice, our emotional intelligence practice, really relaxing, focusing. We'll be cultivating that ourselves so that we can be the mindful teacher we want to be. And then we're going to really dive in to these literacies so that we can understand how to teach, how to integrate this. We'll also talk a lot about that, of the specifics of how to integrate this into each of our classrooms, into each of our schools, if you're a therapist or whatever type of way you're bringing this to kids. It's completely different, teaching mindfulness depending on who you're teaching and who you are and what day it is and how you're feeling in the moment. So I've been hesitant to turn this into like a very step-by-step method, because mindfulness is all about being organic with what's arising. And at the same time, as I was showing, some of these practices are really important to learn clearly and to do in a progressive way, so that we don't, because we can get into a little trouble with it, right? So we really want to work on it. So yeah, so happy that you all are with me on this journey. and we're going to be walking through this to be able to cultivate this for ourselves and for the kids in our lives. So come, join this movement. Learn from all of these amazing teachers. Join me to be part of this mindful future to create more mindful schools. Thank you.